And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FT off. Bring in FT off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. You are looking at a live view of Starship 35, currently sitting on top of the ship static fire stand at the Massey's test site in Starbase, Texas. I'm seeing the 5x5s in chat, which means that at least my microphone is working. We've just gone past 5:30 in the evening, Central Daylight Time, and we're seeing some vents, we're seeing some action, and we're seeing a little bit of frost and condensation around the vehicle, which is currently at the Massey's site. So, currently destined for Starship's 9th flight. Fingers crossed, coming up in a few days' time. My name's Ryan Caton. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. And alongside me, we've got some people who know a little bit about Starship. First of all, Max Evans. How are you doing? Joining us from the other coast.
Yes, indeed. From the East Coast of Florida, good afternoon, everybody. Ship 35 is once again alive and running over at the Massey's test site, presumably and hopefully for a full 6-engine static fire test. At least we hope so. So fingers crossed we see that in just a few minutes.
And also joining us for commentary this evening, the other Ryan Weber. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Yeah, we've got a decent amount of frost already on the LOX tank here. So I'll just take everyone right into this. Based off when they started prop loading and whatnot, which is usually around a 50-minute process with ship over at Massey's, I would expect a T0 somewhere around 605. It's going to be in that range. We'll see. They always like to hold to at Massey's a lot and don't usually just go straight into it. They like to do a lot of extra checks before they static fire, especially L6. And based off the LOX load, looks like they're going to do that full 6-engine test. And I would assume they're going to fill that LOX tank all the way up. So we'll see how long the fire is, too.
Yeah, very exciting indeed. Of course, we had between the first Block 2, Starship 2, V2, whatever you want to call it, flight of Starship, and the second flight, they performed that extra long 60-second duration static fire at Massey's, right? And we got those awesome views running all 6 engines for 60 seconds, that extended duration. It's going to be interesting to see what happens this time around, because of course, if you were watching us yesterday, we had very late last night, or kind of into the early hours of this morning, depending on your time zone, we had the single engine kind of on-orbit demonstration static fire where SpaceX fueled up the Starship just a little bit and then fired only one of those Raptor engines to demonstrate that in-space relight, which is eventually going to demonstrate the orbit capabilities so Starship can go to orbit, blah, 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 blah. However, we haven't seen the Raptor vacuums, we haven't seen those other two Raptor center engines spool up yet, Max. So do you think we'll see an extended 60-second duration static fire once again, or do you think this time around they might just go for, the normal 10-ish sort of seconds that we've become accustomed to in the past?
It's kind of tough to say from an outsider's perspective, but the main goal behind that super long static fire last time was to simulate as much as possible in flight conditions to try and I guess copy the flight circumstances that they had, which led to the failure and the demise of Ship 33 on Flight 7. And as we all know by now, with what happened on Flight 8, Ship 34 also met its demise in a very, very similar point in flight. And there was a lot of wear and tear done to the flame trench over at Massey's because of that super long static fire. So we know that there are only so many conditions that you can simulate on the ground. No matter how much you try to either have the same amount of propellant in the tanks or anything, there's only so much you can do on the ground, and only you can only do so much testing on the ground, and you have to do a lot of it in flight. So I don't think we'll see a super long one today, because that obviously didn't work out too well for him last time, and it cost him a decent amount to repair what was needed over there. So my guess is we will probably see a normal static fire from the range of anywhere to 10 to 15 seconds.
But Ryan, it is important to note that the flight turnaround time between the first Block 2 and the second Block 2 flight, and now between the second Block 2 and the third Block 2 flight, this turnaround time is much longer than it was between the first and the second, right? So at least from the outside, it does appear SpaceX is kind of taking a little bit more slowly, maybe being a little bit more methodical, or is that what you're kind of guessing from the timeline kind of being extended based on the previous flight?
Yeah, if you look at the timelines between when Ship 34 did its static fire to when it launched, or between its cryo and its static fire, 35 spent about an extra 3 weeks in the bay getting work done. Those 3 weeks were probably to do some whatever mitigations or other things to the vehicle to get it ready for, hopefully surviving this a flight test this time rather than blowing up before SECO, because it'd be nice to. I want to see those re-entry views again, especially with the new flaps and everything. I so badly want to see it, because there's people forget there's HD cameras. They put new cameras on these flaps, so we're gonna get even better views if this thing makes it. So I think it shows that they decided to take a little bit of a step back, take a little bit extra time, try to make sure this thing works, rather than bowl straight ahead and try to fly it and see what happens. Yeah, because they kind of want it. I mean, they want it to succeed. It's not like they don't want it to.
What's the newest version of the GoPro? It's like the 14 or something that's coming out later this year. I wonder if SpaceX has gotten advanced access to the new sensors or anything to stick in the flaps of Ship 35. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
It does make you wonder what kind of cameras they have on board and what that technology is derived from, or if they're completely bespoke systems. I'm genuinely curious.
There's a ton of cameras on that vehicle too. They've got cameras looking at all the flap hinges inside the flap hinges, I think. They got cameras on the flaps themselves. There's one that's looking up towards the exit of the Pez. So if they do those dummy Starlinks, at least we think it's a camera, put it that way. It's right at the top of the FTS box. We might see a view of them deploying those if we get to that point, which we've been waiting for 3 flights now. So SpaceX made a bespoke point before Flight 7 that the amount of cameras on board the Block 2 ships is much greater than what was on any of the Block 1s. So, but unfortunately, we still have yet to see what those look like. But fingers crossed, we can get to that hopefully this month.
Yeah, certainly. As many of you have already figured out, if you are new around here, tag us in chat at NASASpaceflight. That brings all of your questions, all of your comments into a nice curated queue that we can run through here and bring them up on stream and create discussion points, which makes our job a lot easier, I will be completely honest. But first of all, we've got a little bit of a support kicking us off here. Ninja Decimator, one of those names who is always in chat, kicking things off with gifting 5 Red Team memberships, and The Nozzle also gifted 1 Red Team membership. I wonder where that nozzle is from. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Thank you very much for all of those Red Team memberships, and of course, if you received one of them in chat, make sure to thank the person who gifted it to you, because that means you now get access to pictures from Starbase, member-only streams, all of that jazz, for free for a month. No commitment required whatsoever. And hey, if you enjoy your perks at the end of that month and you are able to, then why not sign up as well for the various levels we have on offer there as well. Also, just coming in quickly, Telstar86 gifting a Red Team membership. Thank you very much for that, Ryan. I heard your interest was piqued for a moment there.
Yeah, I've been watching the LOX level for a while here, and it has stopped. It's sitting at like not exactly half, not exactly maybe like it's just under a half almost. Maybe a third or a little over a third of the tank is filled. There's condensation on the methane tank. I don't see a frost line, and neither the uh and the LOX subcoolers and the methane subcoolers aren't really going right now. So I don't really know what they're doing. They could definitely be close to a test. They could be holding right now for something and then doing a test fire, or they might have seen something. I don't really know what they're doing right now, but they're definitely not loading at the moment. So it's something to watch.
Yeah, if they were going for a 6-engine static fire, what kind of fuel levels do we expect from the liquid oxygen tank and the methane tank?
I would expect the LOX tank to be filled to the brim all the way up to hold it down as ballast. It just helps for weight purposes. And then we wouldn't even see a ring of methane. I think the most I've seen is maybe like half a ring, or a little bit more of methane, because they also have methane through the transfer tubes as well. So that adds to what they've got. And that would be for like a 6-engine, even 10 to 20-second static fire. 60-second, it'd be probably a tad bit more methane, but not a lot more. They only ever load the exact amount of methane that they need with a little bit left over, so they don't cavitate the pumps. But it is kind of odd that I'm not seeing the frost line go up anymore, and it's been like that for a little bit too.
We have Tom Yu in chat saying, I'm only here for the landing. So unfortunately, you're going to be rather disappointed today. You might have to wait a little while longer in order to see the landing of a Starship. But fingers crossed for Ship 35 on the next flight. It can, actually get into space this time around. We have a question here from Timothy asking, are those black rectangle shape areas on the side of the ship painted, or are they tiles? I think Timothy is referring to, you can see just above the flaps there's like a little black rectangle that extends out of the heat shield area into the stainless steel area. Ryan, do we know what those are?
So they're basically like painted ablative. So on 33 and 34, SpaceX did a small section of that in on each side, and then they also did a small section where they had the tapered heat shield. So rather than the tile just abruptly ending like a hexagon, a hexagon pattern going up, they basically made special tiles that flatten the area into a straight line, and then also taper it down towards the stainless. On 35, it looks like they've done it on the whole thing, on both sides, all the way down between the payload bay and the aft flap, is what it looks like they've done. They've also added in, you can see on the right side, they've added in they painted on it, it's like basically ablative, like paint, basically. This is gonna, if they get to reentry, assuming they get there at this point, this will help show them how the new tapered heat shield works versus not tapered, how how the stainless steel interacts with, one side might get the paint, the other side might not. So you see how the new structure of Block 2 works on reentry versus having the ablative added to it. So there's going to be a lot of experiments to figure out, what the best combination for this heat shield, because that is the most complicated part of this program by far, is figuring out the heat shield that can be, as Elon calls it, the fully and rapidly reusable. Because, as we know, Shuttle's heat shield wasn't exactly that. So that's the biggest challenge they've got, really, with this program.
Yeah, but of course, in order to be fully and rapidly reusable, first you have to be fully and rapidly reliable, which is part of the reason why we're seeing testing today, if it does indeed continue on after this little bit of a holding pattern we're currently observing. And along those lines of that little black rectangle, there's a little bit of a stainless steel or bare rectangle, which Akimitsu, sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly, is asking, what are the two untiled spots at the top of the Starship? Are those the catch pin areas? Ryan, I'll throw that one to you again.
Yeah, those are the catch pin areas. One of the catch pins is tiled, the other one isn't at the moment. They're basically, in order to add those on, it required adding a massive doubler plate and welding it to the payload bay, and then basically they had to then go in, add a bunch of extra supports and stringers. They added some stringers and supports to that, and it also looks like they welded basically a structure on the inside to weld it farther down. And then they welded pins to those. So eventually it's going to get it's going to get tiles. It's just they haven't gotten to that point yet. I think they were working on the rest of the ship. And they also worked a lot on 36. As we saw, they in like, was it 12 days or something, they did most of the tank sections on that ship. So they'll get that done before it flies. It's just got to go back into Mega Bay 2 to get that done. It won't take that long.
And as we still see a little bit of venting, but a lot less venting from the bottom of the picture there, we have a interest, or rather some support here from RC Horseman. Thank you very much. Actually part of our team now. It's part of the Starbase Live operator team. So thank you very much, RC Horseman, for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Jack Wales gifting 5 Red Team memberships. And Ethereal Swordsman with the $5 super chat. Thank you very much for that. Saying that they should go right ahead and add the 3 additional Raptor vacuum engines, which should fix the popping problem, maybe some extra fuel. In other words, skip to Block 3. Max, what do you think? Do you think Block 2? Well, maybe we should see how this flight goes. But if this flight goes in a similar fashion to the 2 flights preceding it, do you think Block 2 should just be kind of literally scrapped and move on to Block 3 already?
I mean, we've already seen, or at least we think, that they are taking that philosophy to the Super Heavy part of the program, because it appears that we have seen Block 3 Super Heavy components instead of Block 2. But they already have a lot of components left for the V2 ships, and they have, I think, 2.5 more essentially in Mega Bay 2 at the moment. So I think it would be a bit wasteful to toss away with all of those. SpaceX still has a long way to go to optimize V2 to get it to where they want it to be before they move on to Block 3. But no, I think that's jumping the gun a little bit. Certainly before they have even a good flight down.
And a bit of support here from Digpon3. Sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. Gifting 1 Red Team membership. So again, everybody gifting memberships. If you received one of them, make sure to thank the person who gifted it to you in chat and enjoy your 3 months worth of the membership program. And speaking of cameras, we have a question here from Astrophysics. Ryan, I'll throw this to you again since you were mentioning cameras earlier. Do we know if there's going to be a camera in the engine area again, like that angle we saw from Ship 34 with the kind of orange hues burning in front of the lens?
I would think they're going to show that again. We didn't see it on 33. My guess is because they had there was a lot of fire in there, and then they didn't really want to show that. I'm kind of surprised they showed it on 34, considering all the fire that was seen in the engine bay. But yeah, because you look at that camera shot, but while you see that red spot on the RVAC nozzle, you basically just see evidence of them dumping liquid oxygen into the engine bay. Basically, is what they're doing. There's a bunch of propellant lines broken at that point. So I would expect them to see it again, and hopefully we see it at SECO. Everything shuts off, everything's fine, and it gets into coast phase. I hope.
Yeah. We all hope. We all want it to get to the
I really want to
phase.
see this thing get. I really want to see that this thing gets a re-entry this time.
Yeah. We have a question here. Speaking of future blocks of the vehicle, rather this or that is asking what is currently installed in Ship 35. Max, do we have Raptor 2s or the Raptor 3 that we've seen at McGregor?
Yep, they are still currently working the Raptor 2s, and they will be, at least for the foreseeable future, for the next, well, I say that, it should be for the next few months, and we think that is going to be the case for the rest of the Block 2s, unless they want to do, they do some kind of Raptor 3 retrofit and make it like a Block 2.5. We know that the next generation booster coming up, whether it ends up being V2 or V3, whichever SpaceX calls it, those need the Raptor 3s with how they are designed. So the Raptor 2s they are sticking with now. They have stopped production of those a while ago, and they are currently working on Raptor 3. But Raptor 2s are proven at this point for the most part, and they are reliable enough for what SpaceX needs them to do, at least on this version of booster as well. They still have a long way to go to get a V2 ship successfully into a suborbital trajectory where it needs to go, but they are going to be sticking with V2s at least for the next few months.
Mm.
Ryan,
Uh-oh,
your
there's
interest
Ryan.
has been
This
piqued
is unfortunate.
for a
This is
second time
unfortunate.
this stream.
I know this is unfortunate. The condensation for the methane tank is gone, and
no.
the LOX line is dropping, so they are detanking.
So it does appear that the propellant is reducing at this moment in time. However, there's nothing saying that it can't be spooled up again. Maybe they were just going for a bit of a preliminary tanking test before ramping up to the full 6-engine static fire. So do stay tuned. We will keep our eyes on the vehicle and see what they do next. But yes, for the moment, if you skip backwards and forwards a few seconds, you can see that frost line is reducing ever so slightly. So, but yeah, as I said, we'll keep an eye on it. There's currently nothing indicating they can't go for a static fire a little bit later in the day than perhaps we were originally expecting. So yeah, we'll just keep an eye on that and keep answering your questions and super chats and messages going forward for the time being. Unless there's anything else big that I'm missing, but for the time being, the vehicle seems healthy, it seems safe, it's stationary, which the Chinese would want for their static fires. But everything seems healthy for the time being. Sorry, I just had to throw that one out there.
The tank farm went quiet around 10 to 15 minutes ago, and since we're seeing them detanking at this point, that's not normally the best of signs. But we don't again, like last night and the night before, we are not aware of a window that they have to operate in with a hard cutoff. So they probably have some time to recycle today if they need to, but we're not quite sure if they will, but you never know.
Depending on if it's an issue, depending on it, if it's like say a GSE issue, they would have to detank and safe the vehicle. Then team goes in, fixes it. If they still think they want to try, they could try for later tonight. They absolutely could have. As far as I know, they don't have a window they have to abide by. It would just it'd probably be several hours before they tried again.
Yeah,
detank and safe it, and that'd take a little bit, but obviously, but they are detanking it, so.
Yeah, but it's also important to note that we don't get a press release from SpaceX every day, right? We have to guess this stuff based on what we see from our live cameras on Starbase Live, based on the road closures issued by Cameron County. Of course, the Massey's test site, there aren't publicly listed road closures, but that's the reason why SpaceX purchased the Massey's site to do this static fire testing, right? They don't have to close the road at the launch site. They can keep the beach open and also conduct their testing with Starship, which is a really critical piece of kind of regulatory wise approvals and whatnot. It's much easier to static fire and test at the Massey's outpost. You don't have to close the road because SpaceX, of course, can only close Highway 4 a certain number of times per year, and that's also limited based on public holidays, limited based on weekends, etc., etc. So that's part of the reason that they purchased the Massey's site and why they're moving so much testing to it. But yeah, we'll just keep an eye on the ship for the time being. The single-engine static fire test that they did yesterday was rather late in the day local time, just before 11 o'clock at night local time. So we're coming up to 6 o'clock in the evening now local time. So we've got a few more hours left in the day. There's no particular window, so we'll keep an eye on the ship and keep answering your questions, such as this one from Severin Fisher asking, do we think the Super Heavy or even a Falcon 9 booster could land with only 3 grid fins and still have a full 6 degree of freedom control? 3 grid fins, Max, has been an idea floated by Elon before. Do you think it would actually become a reality? Do you think they're actually going to be working for it? And do you think, it would actually work?
It's not possible on Falcon 9 because all 4 grid fins are oriented about 90 degrees off from each other. So if one goes down, the other 3 do not have enough control authority to compensate, especially if the 4th is stuck in a position that is just too extreme for the others to handle. They would have to move the grid fins where they currently are on the super heavy boosters in order to make that even feasible. Whether they are about 33 degrees off from each other or something along those lines, it could be possible. And Elon has often said the best part is no part, and that is certainly a lot less weight and parts to have on a booster. But we haven't seen that quite yet. But again, he has talked about it, so maybe that's a thing for a V3 booster. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, or whatever it will be called.
Yeah, right. At
Since
this point,
nobody
nobody
seems to
knows
know
at this
anymore.
point.
Indeed. Speaking of next generation vehicles, Rinpa is asking, do you think they will change the flaps again as much as they did for this version of the ship, or do you think these flaps are the final design? Ryan, what do you think about that? Do you think V3 Starship will have yet another flap redesign, or are the V2 flaps kind of here to stay? I guess they haven't really been able to use them thus far, but what do you think?
Yeah, final design and Starship don't go together very well. That's all I'm going to say. I would expect these to stay for at least a while. They might make some refinements to it based off re-entry data, but this design was also made based off of all the suborbital flights, plus all the re-entry data they've already gotten. They even figured out on the suborbital flights that the flaps that they had were too big. The forward flaps were too big and had too much control. So they reduced them in size when they got to, I think it was S20 or it was a 24. I'm trying to remember which one. They slightly reduced them in size, and then looks like they reduced them again, and then put them more forward to get them out of the plasma stream on reentry. The aft flaps haven't changed much at all. I would expect those to probably get thinner like the forward ones do somewhere down the line. It's just not a priority at the moment. They'll refine things as they go, but as for a final design, they could change on Block 3, but I expect a Block 3/V3 ship to be built by the end of the year. So I don't think the flaps are gonna change for that. Maybe in a couple of years they change, but as for now, I think this is what they're gonna keep.
Just longer, maybe. Longer.
Yeah.
I do have to be honest, I kind of prefer the V1 flap layout, just having them offset. I prefer the shape and the angleness and the sharpness of the V2 fins, the V2 flaps, but the offset positioning just from the front angle, like when you're looking on the steel side, like from the tower when it's stacked, it looks kind of okay and it looks really smart and it looks really clean. But when you're looking at it from the heat shield side on, it looks like it doesn't have any forward flaps, especially when they're folded in. It just doesn't look right. I'm sorry. I know it's aerodynamically better. I know it's meant to make the re-entry process, less burn the flapish, but it just doesn't look right. I prefer the look of the V1 flaps when they're lined up with the aft flaps. Physics aside.
V1
Mark
at this
1 flaps.
Oh God, please no. I mean, V1 certainly is a lot more symmetrical in a lot more from a lot more perspectives. But if you put, and this is just my opinion, my opinion, it's completely subjective. But I put a V1 ship and a V2 ship in flight, in one collage picture. And honestly, at this point, V2 makes V1 just look completely retro. It looks old, in my opinion. Maybe that's just me, but honestly, V2 has been growing on me a lot.
Oh, yeah. The V2 flap design has grown on me a lot, and I know how much better it is. Because when Elon originally talked about moving the forward flaps, he talked about 120 degrees, so they would have been even more tucked in than they are. They're currently at 140 apart rather than 120. It looks a lot better than it would have then, and it doesn't really compromise anything on the nose cone in terms of payload space or door area, because that part of the nose cone is useless to them anyways. For any ship that needs to come in and land, that top half of the nose cone is useless for payload. There's too much stuff in there, so that part doesn't really matter. But V2 has grown on me a lot.
When we first saw it stacked with Booster 14, for Flight 7. Honestly, I think it was Jack's picture that I saw first when they were stacked for the first time. It isn't that much longer than V1, but it looks a lot longer because of how much smaller the flaps are, and because of that, it almost looks too big for the V1 booster. Maybe I'm crazy, but it almost looks too big for a V1 booster. Ryan, am I crazy?
The ship itself, you mean?
Yeah.
No. I mean, I don't think we're at that scale yet. Not like the old table we got from that all hands meeting where you had that Block 3 starship that was incredibly extended. By the way, as far as I understand, that is not what Block 3 is going to look like. At least not the current iteration of Block 3 ship. I think it might be slightly extended more, maybe like a ring or two, but I don't, or the only other thing they do is stick 3 more RVACs on it and call it good. I think we're a ways away from a big stretch, as right now they need to refine the actual systems before they stretch this thing any more than they already have. Because I think the stretch is part of what hurt Block 2 at this point. So yeah, they need to take it down a notch and figure this out first.
And for those of you just joining us, we've just passed 6:04 in the evening local time. You're looking at Ship 35. We've seen some frost rise on it at the beginning of the stream. That frost has since rescinded, and we are currently looking at a bare metal ship. But fingers crossed. Oh, there's a little bit of frost left that was just hidden by the flap there, but it is still decreasing. So that's a little bit annoying, a little bit unfortunate. But again, Massey's is secluded, it's off the road, there's no definitive window. SpaceX can turn around and test pretty much whenever they like. So for now, we're just going to keep an eye and do some Texas test tank watching. And if you like watching test tanks in Texas, then we have something you may enjoy. That is our Texas tank watching collection. Texas tank watchers. We've got stickers. Everyone loves a good sticker. We've got mugs, and of course we've got our shirts as well. I mean, are you telling me you wouldn't want one of these on your laptop? Is that what you're telling me? We've also got it in orange, Jack's favorite color. That's proper orange as well. That's like, I'm not sure if that can be, if it has the exact correct hex code to be international orange, Jack's favorite shade of orange, but it's very, very orange indeed, according to the preview on the shop there. So if any of it, and that's a very blue as well. Well, look at all these colors. We've got every single colour you could ever want for your Texas Tank Watchers t-shirt, designed very reminiscent back from the early days of dodgy Mark 1 flaps on Starship and a booster there with no grid fins and no Raptor shielding protection. Very bare, very crude indeed. But there you go. Get it on a mug as well if that is your fancy. Look at that. Like one orbital tower with some chopsticks, with some. It's so bare. It's so bare. That's the only word I can think of. So empty compared to how it is today. But there you go. Texas Tank Watchers, shop.nasaspaceflight.com. All of your things, all of your spaceflight swag needs. You've heard it before. There you go. As we return to Massey's at Starbase, still watching Ship 35. Fingers crossed some things get going soon. We had a question in chat come through a few minutes ago from the Visualize, sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly, asking what is the definite sign for no testing at the moment. I'm going to say there isn't really a sign either way, right? So as I said earlier, there's no press release from SpaceX at the beginning of the day saying what they're planning. We just have to guess this stuff based on the tank farm conditioning, based on what we're seeing on screen when they're at the launch site, what the road closures are saying. Right now, it looks as if they went for a test and then the frost started, they started detanking, that frost started coming down, or maybe they were doing a kind of partial load test before they were going on for the full static fire test. We just don't know. SpaceX isn't going to say. We have to guess this stuff as we're going along. So best case scenario, they could start ramping up and fueling relatively soon for a static fire, maybe within the next hour or so. Worst case scenario, something terribly bad has happened and they're going to detank and try again in a week's time. But, that is nowhere near are we saying anything like that is happening. So fingers crossed this is just a little test before the big test later in the day.
Mm-hmm. The
Ryan?
biggest indicator would be once they're done detanking and we get the full depress, if Massey's road opens. that opens, then they're not going to go soon. Then we know that there's an issue that got to work. So that's an indicator we're watching for. If they fully detank and it sits around for a little bit, no one comes to the pad, and then they spool that back up again, then they might be going right into it. But there's a lot of little things that have to happen. So eventually this frost will all go away and they'll do a full final depress. What happens after that tells us what they're going to do for the rest of the night. So.
Yeah, and even if you were listening to the Raptor side on Starbase Live earlier, Gage was basically sitting outside Massey's all day waiting for something to happen, and he actually caught a public address announcement at Massey's over the speakers saying that there was a static fire, or they said hot fire. Quick tangent, I do not understand the hot fire terminology whatsoever. It's a rocket engine. Of course it's hot. That word is redundant. The important word is the static fire, because you're meant to stay static, you're meant to stay still, you're not meant to launch, even though you are firing your engines. Tangent over. So yeah, Gage actually heard that they were going to be conducting a static fire over the PA system at Massey's. So that is the reason why we went live, because that's what we're expecting today, right? But that's the limit of our knowledge from SpaceX. Let's put it that way. So since then, a few hours ago, all eyes on Massey's, just seeing what the tank farm was doing. I wouldn't want to see a cold fire, though. Just saying, that would not be good. You want your engines to be in condition.
Would a spin prime classify as a cold fire?
Mm-hmm.
There's no fire.
But it's cold, and there's prop going through the pumps into the combustion chamber. It's just not hot though. Or RCS thrusters using cold gas. That's a cold fire.
Jay, ask Booster 7.
Oh gosh, yeah. That was a cold fire turned hot fire rather quickly.
That was a whoops.
Yeah, that is maybe we should have a detonation suppression system moment. Anyways, moving swiftly on. Let's have a look through here. 9-8 Central is asking, are the engines gimbaled during the static fire? That's an interesting question. Ryan, are they gimbaled? It maybe intentionally, should I add?
They can if they want to. When they static fire. Just kind of through different vibrations and other things like that. But, there's nothing stopping them from gimbaling the centers when they go to static fire. There's nothing really stopping them from doing it.
So it's more of a theoretically they can do this thing if they wanted to. We haven't seen them do it, but there's nothing.
Well, you say that, but actually from the 6-engine fire from Ship 34, it was initially released in slow-mo, but if you sped it up to real time, you could actually see all three sea-level Raptors moving to some extent and orienting themselves in a more uniform position. So they can, and they have actually also on the single-engine fire also from Ship 34. If you sped that up in real time as well, that engine also gimbaled maybe 1 or 2 degrees, probably intentionally to test something. But we actually have seen them do it. So yes, they can.
Yeah, and we were just seeing there the static fire test yesterday from Ship 35, which was of course that single engine static fire simulating an in-space burn. We're currently waiting for a rumoured 6-engine static fire. We've seen SpaceX's say that on social media. And of course, we heard the PA address at Massey's earlier today saying there would be a static fire later. And unless something horrifically went wrong yesterday, there's not really a reason to do another single engine in space burn, right? So we're kind of expecting a ramp up in testingness to a 6-engine static fire from Ship 35. Fingers crossed sometime soon. But if you're just joining us, we saw some frost. We now don't really see any frost. So fingers crossed that frost comes back in due course. Speaking of Starship Flight 9, we are going to be seeing Ship 35 partnered with Booster 14, which of course has flown before and successfully been caught before, but will it be successfully caught again? That's an interesting question that is also being rumoured online for many weeks now. Jose is asking, and I'll go around the room on this one, will Booster 14 perform a splashdown or be caught by Mechazilla? Max, let's start with you. Are you team splashdown or team catch?
Well, tossing away any booster into the drink at this point just seems wasteful, because they have produced their last version 1 booster super heavy. So it seems wasteful to toss any of them else into the water. So I would like to err on the side of catch, and if they do opt to test anything different, whether it be a steeper approach angle or even a 2-engine landing burn, like we've seen rumors of going around, they could just choose to abort that at the very last moment and then send it into the water. So hopefully they catch it, but I think that's where my vote is right now.
Ryan, what about you? Are you team splashdown or team catch?
I think they'll try for it. Why not? See if you can. See how it performs. The only other thing would be to try to do something wacky with it, and then have a splashdown. But considering where they're at with booster block 3, I guess at this point, where they don't have one stacked yet, they haven't even really started fully testing anything yet, because Test Tank 17 is not in the cage, as we can see over on the right. It's still in Star Factory, and Pad B still being built. They're going to need to keep as many block 1 or block 2 boosters, I guess, at this point. Old boosters. We'll just call it old boosters. This naming scheme is starting to get. They're going to keep as many old boosters as they want, or as they can, so they can fly as many missions as they can, until the next pad and the next booster generation is ready, and then they'll go. So I think they'll try. Why not?
Yeah, I have to agree. I really see any reason why they'd want to intentionally expense the booster, especially this early in the program. A little bit of event briefly from beneath the ship. The comparisons I've seen being made are to Falcon 9, right? But an important thing to consider is that Falcon 9, from its inception, was a customer carrying rocket. It carried Dragon for NASA, it carried And we're back. Falcon 9, it carried payloads from its inception, right? It carried Dragon for NASA, it carried satellites for customers. That SpaceX needed to prove to its customers that a reused rocket was a reliable way to get to space. They don't need to do that with Starship. They are their own customer. The only thing they're going to be launching into space or deploying into an orbit for the near-term future is going to be Starlink satellites. So SpaceX can absorb all that risk themselves. They don't have to worry about convincing a customer to fly on Starship. They are the customer themselves, right? So that comparison doesn't really hold up between Falcon 9 boosters and Super Heavy boosters for that reason. And also, over the last few weeks, I actually cannot remember how many Starbase updates we've done now, where in the intro it's been, and SpaceX has tested the chopsticks on Pad A again. Like, they are testing these chopsticks seemingly every other day at the moment, right? Why would they be putting these chopsticks through so much testing if they didn't want to use them, right? That just doesn't really make sense to me. So that's why I'm on Team Catch, and I would really be incredibly surprised if SpaceX from the off intentionally threw Booster 14 into the Gulf there. And obviously, in the event that there is a decision made by Mission Control during the flight for a water landing, like we saw on Flight 6, that would be, perfectly acceptable. I would not be surprised by that, because that is one of the two options. It's kind of 50-50. But I would be incredibly surprised if that decision is made, 2 weeks before the flight, whenever that flight may be. And speaking of when the flight may be, we have a question here from Hello, asking, has there been a date or a rough date given for the next launch? If not, how long do you think it will be until they attempt? Now, I'll go around the room again on this one. Max, starting with you again. When are you thinking the actual launch of this ship and Booster 14?
Well, Ship 35 has remained the biggest bottleneck in the Flight 9 campaign, as we have said a lot over recent days, and we are happy to see it finally back out at Massey's. But usually we are not aware of a date until probably around a week or a week and a half out. And in order for SpaceX to push ahead with launch, they need to have a successful 6-engine fire at Massey's. So Assuming they can get that done tonight, if not tonight, then hopefully tomorrow or the day after. I'm thinking mid-May at the earliest sounds the most reasonable. Hopefully at least by the end of May for sure, because it's been a minute and they have certainly taken their sweet time at making sure it's ready. Booster 14, as far as we are aware, it has done its own refire. It is ready to go. So hopefully within the next few weeks.
Ryan, what about you? When are you thinking Flight 9?
Yeah, as Max is saying, 35 is the bottleneck because I actually am. I'm kind of surprised at this. So I mean, you got 14, which it's sitting in the bay. Looks like we actually have I think we have a depress going on right now. You can see you can see both vents running on the right side there. So we got full depress
Yep.
going. But you've got 14. Looks like it's ready to go. It's had its hot stage ring for what? See, when did it get that thing? Look at my dates here.
Wasn't it last week? I think it was last week.
No, it was reinstalled. It's had it for about a week and a half now.
Okay.
Yeah, because they initially took it to the ring yard and then put it into the mega bay and then like lifted it and then put it back down and then took it back out into the ring yard and then took it back into it. Like there was a whole thing on Starbase Update a couple of weeks ago with where on earth is the hot staging ring, because it was in out. SpaceX couldn't make their mind up. But yeah, to that point, it's been on the booster for a while now, right? So yeah, that is.
Yeah, it's been on for it'll be almost 2 weeks. It's been on since the 19th. So that booster's basically ready to go. And since the static fire, I have not seen much work on that pad. I actually think they've gotten that pad down to like 2-3 week turnaround time, or in and around that area, maybe like 3. The pad's ready to go. They have not worked on it a bunch. All they've really done is test They did a full retraction test, I think, a little while ago, and then they've done a bunch of testing with the sticks. That has been in correlation with Pad B sticks as well at times. I think they're just fine-tuning the control systems on both. But once 35 completes its static fire here, I mean, I would say within a week and a half, 2 weeks, they go back, finish off the heat shield stuff they need to finish off, do whatever other little things, get the dumb links loaded, and go. Send it. Maybe a prop load test. We'll see. Which doesn't take long. Takes a day, less than a day to do a partial load test, I think is what they'll do, and then they'll push for launch. Because they tried no partial load test last time, and it didn't really work that great. But maybe they won't this time. We'll see.
Do it.
Well, it depends which way you want to look at it. I'm not sure whether they did do a load test on the first flight. It ended about a minute before SECO. They didn't do it for the second flight. It also ended about a minute before SECO. So whether those two events are correlated, we don't know. We'll probably never know. But either way, as we can see on our screens right now, that is a depressurization vent from Ship 35. Looks like just the single one going now. Oh, and the second one's come back. So yeah, that is a depressurization from Ship 35. Ryan, first of all, what does this mean for the time being? And can you also go through kind of the steps towards a potential recycle if that is indeed what SpaceX decides to go for today?
So with a full depress, it means they're safing the vehicle. They'll safe the ground systems as well. We usually with a full recycle, they would just detank. They could just refill again. A full depress kind of points to the fact that they want to get people. They want to safe everything and get people into Massey's to look at something, whether that's on the ship or whether it's GC. We don't know. We don't know why what it appears to be an abort, because we did overhear of the PA that they seem to intend to static fire this vehicle. So, it's kind of one of those things. So, of course, we don't hear anything from SpaceX. It's about the only reliable information we have is the PA announcement. They'll safe this. They'll get people in to look at whatever they want to look at. They might be able to fix that within an hour and then close up shop again, close everything down, chill it all down again, load it up, and go. It looks like they can, between closing up Massey's and whatnot, between closing up masses and a possible static fire, looks like it takes about 2 hours or so. They close masses, chill down in about an hour or so, and then they can get into prop load. So even if the fix isn't that, if there isn't a big issue or something like that, and they want to just recycle, they could definitely be ready to go by 11 o'clock again. And remember, last night, what was it, 10:57? They did that single engine static fire, so they can do it late at night. So there's nothing stopping them from possibly fixing what's wrong and trying again right away. So it's one of those things is don't go away. They could still do it tonight.
Yeah. They could also just be going through the process again. Like there is no official word from SpaceX either way, right? So this could be SpaceX just doing testing through this process. This could be SpaceX needing to replace a part. We don't know. Obviously, hoping for the shorter of those two options, because a delay all the way out to a similar time as yesterday would be slightly annoying in the short term. But of course, we want this vehicle to perform as well as it can in the long term, considering the previous two flights have had less than optimal outcomes, should I say. But for the moment, whilst we watch Ship 35 go through its depress procedure, D, thank you very much for gifting the 5 Red Team memberships. And Thanos is asking, with a €2 super chat, how well do we think Booster 14 will perform? Max, I'll throw this to you first. The first reflight of a super heavy booster, how well do you think B14 will do?
Ooh, well, SpaceX seems to have a lot of confidence in it, and the 33 engine static fire it had over at Pad A seemed to go very well. And mind you, 29 of its 33 engines are flight-proven engines. So SpaceX seems to have a lot of confidence in it performing well, and SpaceX really needs it to, because they really can't afford to have a third ship failure in a row, let alone having a booster fail on reflight to get it to a point where ship could hopefully succeed. So I have faith in Booster 14. I really do. Super Heavy has proven to be a very robust vehicle to this point, and we have seen it through all 3 catch attempts in three differing weather conditions, from sunrise and calm air to super windy conditions. It has proven to be a very, very robust vehicle. So I think for the ascent portion of flight, I think it's going to do fine, but anything after that really is anyone's best guess. Hopefully, they can bring it back to Pad A for a successful catch, or at least guide it down controlled down to the ocean if they need to.
Yeah, and speaking of the engines on Booster 14, Mini Sandbox is asking, is Raptor 314 the Pi Raptor? Ryan, is it installed on Booster 14?
No clue. The first time there's either there's 3 ways we find that out. 1, SpaceX tells us. 2, we catch it on liftoff. Or 3, we catch it if they catch it. That's about the only 3 ways we'll find out if it actually is on that booster. And let's go full reckless optimism on 14. No engine outs. Do it. No engine outs, catches it. Reckless optimism.
That's not very Ryan Weber-like, I have to say.
I know. I knew it was going to surprise you. That's why I did it.
But they have had a few engine outs, both on boostback and on the start of the landing burn for Flight 8. So it is it is worrisome to see that, but Raptor 314 is part of the outer ring of 20, which are only lit once and not 3 times, like the inner 13 Raptors. So, but that being said, it is the only Raptor at the moment to have been flown more than once, and assuming it is installed again on Booster 14, it will be the only one to have flown it 3 times at this point. So, we hope so. We really hope it is. That we know of. That SpaceX has disclosed.
They took all the engines off 15. There's a chance. It's not really likely. There's a chance they stuck one of those engines on 15 on 14, and I think they did Yeah. So I mean, there's a chance there could be more than one that's flown 3 times. I mean, SpaceX has to tell us. So, but yeah, it's really really cool that they're finally getting reflights into it. I hope they figure out that ignition problem they've got with Raptors. Be nice if they figured that out.
Yeah, I
Engine
was going to
outs are
say,
fun.
some of these Raptors have only fired twice during flight, the inner 13, because they've either failed to come up for the boost back burn or failed to come up for the landing burn. But they're, credit where credit is due. SpaceX's restart criteria for the Raptors is obviously significantly advanced to the point where even if an engine doesn't ignite for the boost back burn, it still comes back for the landing burn. We've seen that on more than one occasion, and we've also seen that the other way around. It has worked for the boost back burn. It hasn't worked for the landing burn. So it's not something that, in my opinion, is one of the most impressive things that SpaceX has been able to figure out so far, because the reason they've put 33 engines on Super Heavy instead of 5 massive engines like the F1s on the Saturn V is for that purpose of redundancy, right? If you lose one engine out of 33, you've only lost 133rd of your thrust. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
However, if you lose one engine, one F1 engine on the Saturn V, you've lost a fifth of your thrust, right? So that's the entire reason SpaceX has put so many engines on Super Heavy for that purpose. Let's have a look through here. Astrophysics again. Oh, go on, Ryan.
This many engines doesn't work. Remember that whole thing? This many engines won't work. No, they can't do it. It won't work. No.
Because the N1 couldn't do it twice?
Yeah, that whole thing.
N1 will N1.
Yeah, the N1 is N1. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, I will say those who were doubting Super Heavy's ability to ignite, so many engines at the same time because they'd seen something bad with an old Russian rocket 60 years ago, the two are not exactly directly related. Let's put it that way. But the 2 years since that first flight, it's been over 2 years already, I think those people have been thoroughly disproven at this point. But if we just ignore the first flight, I believe all bar one Starship Flight has had 33 out of 33 Raptors on the booster from ignition, I think.
And correct. And for those who are worried about a super high amount of engines on any first stage of a rocket, don't forget about Falcon Heavy, which has 27 Merlins, because it is literally just 3 Falcon 9 cores put together, and 9 times 3 is 27. And they have never had an engine out on Falcon Heavy whatsoever. So, and that flew way back in 2018 for the first time, and has flown to this point, I think it's over 10 times now, and it's never had a problem. So, 27 engines has proven to not be an issue, and for the most part, neither has 33.
It's flown many times, apart from that 3-year period between 2019 and 2022, where it seemingly,
just
fell
disappeared.
asleep or was hibernated. I don't know what happened to Falcon Heavy, guys. It just disappeared for 3 years. Anyways, as we just saw from that other shot, very quickly, I don't want to backseat produce. Thank you, Jay, who is producing in the background. Ryan, we're seeing some venting. What could this be indicative of?
That should be the fan vents for the LN2, and I think they're just, emptying the lines and, finishing off the detank procedures and everything like that.
Spreading some nitrogen everywhere.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just nitrogen. By the way, there's 2 flights where they had an engine out on ascent. Flight 1, Flight 3. I think it was Booster 11 that had one out, if I remember correctly. So,
yeah,
it was 11.
And at that they lost.
Or was it? No, that was 4.
1 or 2? Was it 1 or 2 engines on the third flight? I can't remember.
It was just the one. I think it was one of the outer 20.
Yeah, I knew. I remembered it was one of the outer 20. But I think we can all at this point disregard the first flight of Starship, because that booster design was very clearly different from the booster designs we've seen since, and the entire pad disintegrating beneath the vehicle at the moment of liftoff. But if we consider Flight 2 onwards, out of the, I'm going to do some very shoddy maths here very quickly. We've had 8 flights minus the first flight. That's 7 times 33. Out of the 231 Raptor ignitions at liftoff of the Starship program so far, one has failed. One has failed. If that's not reliability, I don't know what is. 1 out of 231. Like, just put that into perspective. 1 out of 231. That's incredible. Looking at some support here. Phil, thank you very much for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. If you received one of them, make sure to thank Phil in the chat. And let's have a look at some more questions here as we see a little bit of that venting activity just at the bottom of the picture there, above that long white cylindrical tank. Let's see. So I'm just Noah is asking, could they catch Starship? So we're already looking into the future here. Could they catch Starship with undeployed Starlinks still inside, say like a few? Max, let's start with you. What do you think? Do you think that catching is still going to be possible, even if they have payloads left inside? I guess that would be kind of, important if they ever want to do like a satellite retrieval or a telescope retrieval mission.
I don't see why that would be a significant issue. The chopsticks are designed to hold a vehicle that is much heavier than a ship currently is, i.e. super heavy. And it is designed to catch that in midair, obviously, and it is going to do that with Starship as well. So, if they do happen to have 3 or 4 dumblinks, as we call them, still on board, I can't really see that posing much of an issue in terms of weight to be bared by the chopsticks. So, assuming that they are not able to deploy them, as long as they are able to close the payload bay door and they are still secured in place and not in any danger or any risk of moving around and changing the weight distribution aboard ship, I don't think it'll be that big of a problem, honestly.
And speaking of catching, Mr. Bamboozler with the 4-month member milestone asking, can a booster catch still happen if a center Raptor is out? Ryan, I'll throw this to you. Let's assume we got 13 out of 13 on the landing burn, but as the booster starts to descend, down selects to 3 engines. One of those 3 engines conks out. Do you think booster can still land in the chopsticks?
It should be able to. 3 is a lot better for control. 2 is not ideal, but it should have more than enough thrust to weight ratio and control to be able to do it. It might get a little finicky, but they can still do it. If they go down to 1, booster's gonna drop like a stone, because the booster at that point with residuals should weigh more than a single Raptor, and that's Raptor 2. With Raptor 3 at max power, they might have a 1-to-1 down selecting to 1 engine. That's a maybe. If they're able to get 300 tons out of a single Raptor, that's a maybe. Otherwise, it's gonna slam to the ground. Otherwise, they at that point, even you can't even hit the dunes. At that point, you hit right next to the pad. That's
well, at least our remote cameras would survive at that point. Then
it'd be an amazing explosion, to say the least.
Amazing is certainly one word for it.
Yeah. Amazing in terms of the spectacle, less amazing in terms of the turnaround time between that flight and the next. Maybe the FAA investigation that follows it as well. But, theoreticals, fingers crossed, something like this never happens. Or, in SpaceX's opinion, fingers crossed, something like this never happens. Let's have a look through here. Anonymous, thank you very much for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. And speaking of engines firing, fingers crossed we still get to see a static fire today. If you're just joining us, we saw the frost rise about an hour ago, and then the frost has since disappeared, and everything's kind of quietened down. So we're just kind of in a holding pattern, waiting to see what SpaceX does. We have no official word from SpaceX, as is the norm. So we're just, hanging out with you guys, watching, doing some Texas tank test tank watching, and we'll report on whatever happens next. The birds seem to be rather enjoying this ability to just, fly around, not have to worry about Raptor engines firing at full thrust. Anyways, speaking of the Raptor engines and the static fire, the Visualize asking, is there a limit for how long the static fire will/can go? Now, Ryan, of course, the limit in terms of propellant, of course, if they get through all of their propellant, they can't really continue firing for obvious reasons. But are there any other reasons that would preclude a longer duration static fire, should I say?
I guess the question on that is do you want the pad to survive or the vehicle to survive? Because if you want those to survive, 60 is kind of the limit. After that 60-second static fire, in aerial photos, we saw scaffolding in and around the trench area. It looks like they also installed some other steel after that static fire, basically, to like steel panels on the side because they eroded a lot of concrete away. So it's not, I don't think they would want to really do a 60-second again. That's why I wouldn't think they would do one this time around. Maybe 30 seconds if they actually end up doing static firing tonight or something. But in theory, they could probably go for as long as they had feel for, which I think they can. I can't remember how much they can fuel the methane tank. But a full duration. I don't know if they have enough methane on site to do like a full duration 6.5 minute static fire. But at that point, you'd be digging a massive hole in the ground and probably blow up the whole thing. So it's not ideal. It really depends on what you want to survive. Is how long you want it to go for. Yeah.
And for comparison, just for context, I'm genuinely curious. I don't know this. I think you might, Ryan. Whenever they do a booster static fire over at on the orbital launch mount, correct me if I'm wrong, they are limited to the amount of water they have for the big plate. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which they run, I think that runs 300,000 gallons is what they run that at. Basically, they could probably fire it for like 15, maybe 20 max on that booster before they start running too low on water and the plate starts having issues. Because they're already ablating that plate away. I mean, if you look at like just aerial photos of that plate, it's gone through some stuff. I don't know how much more of that plate's got left in it, but that plate does not have much life left in it. Pad B will be wildly different in the way it's set up. As we know, the buckets, the ridge, and everything else, as well as all the other water cooling. What they've got at Pad B is about 1 million gallons of water between the plate, the bucket, trench, and everything else. They might be able to do like 30-second booster static fires at Pad B, because also the other issue with the booster at Pad A is the hold down clamps are not designed to hold the booster down at higher thrust levels. Like they have to run it at half, because the limiting factor is also how they hold the booster. The new hold down design, what it looks to be, is completely different, which might allow them to do longer fires and be able to hold the booster down better. So we might see longer fires out of boosters, but I don't think it's needed because they've been pretty fine with their 8 to 10 second static fires they've been doing. They really haven't had any issues. So
that's going to look absolutely insane whenever they get Pad B up and running for a static fire with that flame trench and flame bucket design. It'll be like what am I thinking of? Proton?
Pattern 5.
Proton. No, it'll be like Proton because the exhaust will be routed back upwards and not just straight out. God, I'm so excited for that.
It's gonna be routed out and up on both ends.
Yes.
So our south cams, highway cams, north cams will be kind of interesting because the tower's in the way.
Yeah.
A little bit. But you'll just see these two massive plumes off to each side.
It's gonna look so cool.
It's gonna be. I can't wait. But unfortunately, the first static fire for that might not be till like the end of the year. I don't know though. They don't have a booster for it yet, and of course the old M isn't even at the pad yet. So
Yep.
yeah.
For those of you wondering, 300,000 gallons is 1.13 million litres, or according to Windows 10, 0.3 swimming pools. I'm not sure how big that swimming pool is. However big it is, there's 0.7 of the swimming pool remaining.
Thank you for the conversions.
You're very welcome. I don't know why. I'm just using the default calculator, right? And it comes up with about equal to 0.3 swimming pools. I have no idea where that figure came from, but I thought it was interesting enough that I'd say it anyways. Speaking of boosters static firing, there is another booster which has gone through testing for a future flight but hasn't static fired yet. That, of course, is Booster 16. Max, why do you think we haven't seen it static fire yet? The pad is empty. SpaceX aren't doing anything with it right now. They've just been playing with the chopsticks for a couple of weeks. Why are they not just static firing Booster 16 now they have the opportunity?
Well, that could come down to a myriad between just pad scheduling or the scheduling of events between booster 14, 15, and 16. And also doesn't have Raptors yet, as far as we are aware, which you kind of need in order to static fire in the first place. And it needs 33 of them. So I think in terms of what has priority out on the range at Starbase, I think right now it's going to be booster 14, assuming we are as close to launch as we all hope we are. They don't want to have to drag out a booster all the way out to the launch site unless they really have to. So at this point, booster 16 just really is not a huge priority, and especially hopefully considering that we are hopefully so close to Flight 9.
Yeah. Let's have a look through here. Speaking of Flight 9, the booster, or rather the flight after that's going to be Flight 10. Let's assume everything goes perfectly well for Booster 14 and it's caught. Ryan, do you think they'd reuse it straight away again on Flight 10, or do you think they'll keep it around for a little bit, do some inspections, maybe flight again on a later flight? What do you think?
I don't think they're not going to reuse it right away for Flight 10. Flight 10 is probably going to be Booster 16. As we were just talking about 16. Let's see here. It finished its cryo early March. So, I mean, if SpaceX wanted to, they probably could roll it out for static fire, but then, of course, they have to do some refurbishment on the pad to get it ready for flight again. So it's one of those things. It's like, okay, whatever. My guess is they'll roll it out and static fire it as soon as the pad is ready to go after Flight 9. Use that for Flight 10. Booster 15, reuse that for Flight 11. It really depends on what they want to do with 17. I think 17 will be Flight 12. Maybe 14 goes on like Flight 13. It comes to the point at which SpaceX then has a bunch of boosters that they can then try to refurb and just reuse. If they catch 14 again. So it's like, because 17 is currently just chilling out in the rocket garden having just completed a cryo. So it'll need about a month and a half in the bay to get its engines, get its grid fins, get all set up, and get ready for a static fire. So they have 14, 15, 16, 17. They got 4 boosters to play with. And they can kind of choose where they want to put each flight. But they're also, you have to keep in mind, is this is the first time SpaceX is going to be reusing a super heavy booster. If something doesn't go right or not like perfect, they may reconsider reusing one for a little bit. Maybe they use 16 and then 17, and then maybe push 15 down the line if they have to do something extra with it. So there's a lot of unknowns because this is the first time they're doing this with super heavy, So I it's kind of a wait and see at this point. We don't really know what the vehicle combinations are going to be going forward.
Yeah, and again, as I said many times already, SpaceX doesn't really give us any information on what they're doing at Starbase until, we're T-1 hour away from launch, and then suddenly Kate Tyson down here are like, by the way, here's what we've been doing for the last 3 months. This, and that. We have a new office building now. How do you like our new set? That's kind of how things roll with SpaceX communications, but each to their own. They can decide how they like to do it, and, I'm not going to be complaining as long as we can get some beautiful views, not only from their cameras, but also from our cameras set at our various locations around South Texas. Let's have a look through here. Speaking of Massey's, Jacob asking, where do they actually control Massey's from? Speaking of that office building, actually, do they control it from the office building, or is there a secure bunker somewhere? Ryan, do we actually know? Or if I recall correctly, there's the Ad Astra facility just a bit down the road. Do you actually know where Massey's control takes place?
I think it's the Ad Astra building. It's controlled air. They might also be doing stuff at the office building, where I think they have stuff for Starship now. It could be either one of those locations or both. So, you know.
Yeah, let's have a look through here. So, it seems like we're running out of Starship stuff to talk about. So let's talk about Falcon Heavy again, because why not? Severin asking, do you think SpaceX will ever have a reason to launch a Dragon atop a Falcon Heavy ISS deorbit vehicle, perhaps? Question mark. Max, as our current Florida East Coast person on the stream, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think the ISS deorbit vehicle will be a Falcon Heavy job, or will it be a Falcon 9 job? Of course, that trunk, much bigger than normal.
Much bigger than normal, and actually contains a great deal of engines, unlike the current trunk that Dragon uses, either crew or cargo. God, it would be so cool to see Dragon on top of Falcon Heavy. Like, we have been thinking about that for years, but at the moment, well, they wouldn't even have to crew certify it. It's not flying crew. I'm going through this in my head now, like as we're talking about it. And maybe the only issue is, does SpaceX, depending on how much performance they need to get it up to get it up to the ISS, the performance they need, do they need a Falcon Heavy for that, or can they just use a Falcon 9 fully expended for that? Or does Falcon 9 have enough performance to launch it and then be recovered with a drone ship out in the ocean? We don't know. All we can say is that, dude, a Dragon on top of Falcon Heavy would be so freaking cool. Oh my gosh. That'd be great. We hope so. But time will tell. We're not sure.
Red Dragon.
Red Dragon.
Red Dragon.
Red Dragon.
The more I kind of think about Red Dragon, the less and less realistic it actually, knowing what we know now, the less and less realistic it actually, the proposal sounds. But still, just seeing a dragon, or not seeing it, but maybe having a little rover to deploy, crawl away, and then get like a selfie of the dragon just by itself on the surface of Mars. Maybe there's a dust storm in the background. That would be pretty freaking cool. Not gonna lie, that would be pretty cool. But it's never gonna happen.
Yeah, well, you don't say that. You never know. You never know. I mean, we pretty much do, but we don't know. We're not 100% sure. Like 99% sure, maybe.
I would be willing to bet a significant amount of my income on the fact that Red Dragon never happens.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyways. Let's have a look. We've been getting a lot of questions along this line from many people. I'll bring up this one here from Astrophysics. Do we know if the satellites? I'm not sure if you're saying satellite is the right word, because if SpaceX does still decide to go ahead with the Starlink demonstrator payload, should I call it? I don't like calling them dumb links. I think that's kind of What did the boilerplates ever do to you for you to call them dumb links, Jack? Anyways, the boilerplate satellites, that's what I call them, the boilerplate satellites. Ryan, do you think they'll have a camera or even an ability to transmit? I mean, I think that would be pretty cool to see, but at the same time, what they loaded for the last two flights looked like a steel rod with some rails, and that was it. So what are we thinking?
I mean, maybe. It's one of those things. They could put like a small camera with a battery on it, like a little GoPro or something that just talks to the ship itself. I don't think they need an FCC license if it talks to just the ship. They need one if they have to talk back down to Earth, I think. But because also not only that, they're not staying in orbit, they're re-entering again. So they'll literally re-enter with the ship once they get deployed because they'll be on the same trajectory. So yeah, maybe it'd be really cool.
Indeed.
I think didn't somebody on X ask that question at one point before Flight 8, and didn't Elon like kind of do a little hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge that might be happening?
I don't think it was Elon that did that. It was a certain someone I'm not going to say, but anyways.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
I thought it was E. I genuinely thought it was, and that's why.
I don't think it was him.
Okay. Oh, all right, Ryan. Jeez.
Sorry, Max. Sorry.
Okay, Ryan. Goodness.
We'll just
Unless
have the only way to find out.
someone finds a tweet, if they find it, then I mean Max will prove me wrong again, but that's not surprising. So
The only way to definitively find out for certain, for sure, for real, is if halfway through the stream on Flight 9, we suddenly see Starlink cam deploy on the feed. But that's the only way we'll know for certain, and until that point, nobody really knows. So let's have a look through here. Whilst I look for more questions again, tag us in chat at NASASpaceflight. I'll toss it over to Ryan for a little bit of an update of what we're looking at right now. Ryan, to my eye, I'm seeing very minimal venting, kind of in front of the aft end of the ship there, and the bushes are blowing in the wind. That's about it.
yeah, they fully detanked, fully depressed. There's some venting from the vaporizers. Some of them are a little bit chilly, and there's some venting from the LN2 side. But other than that, there's not much going on with the tank farm. This is basically like fully spooling down. Doesn't mean they can't spool back up, as always. As far as I know, the Massey's Road is still closed. I don't think it has opened up yet again, but it doesn't have to open for a red team to go in and do something. Maybe do a little quick fix and then they spool it back up. They could be keeping the tank farm in a state where some parts are chilled down, and then they'll ramp it back up again if they're ready to try for another try tonight. That's kind of where we're at right now. So a lot of it's just waiting to see if the venting starts picking back up again. If we see like the lock side start going back up again along with the LN2 side, then things start seeming more promising for something going on tonight. And then plus there's the chill down vent for the gantry pad area, which is a little fan vent off near the ramp. If that starts going as well, then there's a good chance that they're trying again for tonight. But as of right now, we don't know. We haven't seen them open the road. I think it's still closed. And tank farm's kind of spooled down in a standby kind of thing. So, and Massey's Road is still closed from people out in the field. So they could be just sending people in to take a look at something real quick.
Yeah, the only way we know is just waiting and see what happens, because that's just how things roll with some classic Texas test tank watching. Yamanana, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, thank you very much for the $10 Canadian super chat, asking if we've seen the video of the guy on Kerbal Space Program who made a Starship Heavy, basically a Starship with 2 boosters that are Falcon 9s. I haven't seen that one in particular, but I have seen some very, very cursed stuff from the Discord server, the NSF member Discord server, especially Moldy Space Industries, has made some very, very cursed things which probably could work in real life, but I definitely would not want to see work in real life, let's put it that way. One thing I can remember requesting in the past is a Cygnus Heavy, one extended Cygnus with the ISS transport vehicle, one extended Cygnus with 2 short Cygni on the outside to create Cygnus Heavy. Very inefficient because, of course, you can only berth to the middle Cygnus, but hey, it was a Cygnus Heavy. Anyways, apparently I am getting reports in my ear if I was a news presenter. Apparently there are reports of lots of tankers waiting to drive into Massey's. So, Ryan, does that mean they've run out of propellant? Did they get halfway through filling the ship and they're like, oh, Our methane tank's empty. Maybe we need some more propellant. Did they just give the propellant company a ring and say, hello, can we have some CH4, please? What do we know what's going on there?
Yes, is they were ready. They were scheduled to come in after the static fire, and after the static fire was done, after they detanked and everything else, which kind of lines up. If they had, when they started prop loading, they were targeting 6605. If they had static fire and then detanked and saved everything, those tankers would be lined up to come in and refill the tank farm after that. So that kind of lines up with that. I doubt it has anything to do with the detanker and abort here. It just is they were probably already scheduled to come in and not anymore. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I hope the drivers get paid by the hour and there's a really, really long test. So, plenty of money for their troubles. But yeah, I have no idea how any of that industry works. But it is interesting to see them, lining up on the road to Massey's, waiting for the road to open. Because of course, even though there's a picture there from a Caesar of the Massey's road and those tankers waiting, because of course, even though the Massey's road, the closure of the Massey's road, that isn't publicly scheduled and publicly reported on the Cameron County website like the Highway 4 road closures are, SpaceX, even though it is their road and it's their property, they still have to close the road, right? They can't have people going up all the way to the fence of Massey's when there could be a static fire in 5 minutes. They have to keep everyone out of the way, and they close their own road for that reason, to make sure nobody gets too close or closer than the defined safe hazard area for a ship test. I don't actually know if there's a similar, kind of boarded off area on the Mexican side, because of course, as we look at the ship right now, that static fire stand is a few meters from the Rio Grande River, which itself is the border between the United States and Mexico, and that the flame trench for the ship static fire stand blows all of the exhaust into Mexico. So I'm not actually sure if there was anyone on the Mexican side, if they like is that allowed? I would assume SpaceX would see that and say, that's not great, let's not static fire. But I don't actually know how the regulatory side of that actually works. I'm just throwing that one out there in case anyone has any thoughts.
There's no one on that side. There's no one near there. I think I'm trying to remember what the closest one is, but there's no one technically right on the other side of that. Although in some aerial imaging, it does look like some of the vegetation on the other side may have not fared too well from some of the static fires that they've done. So especially that 60-second one. So yeah.
I'm sure SpaceX can afford to do some international relations and send some grass seeds over the border to, regrow the grass.
So
I don't know.
To add to the tanker thing, it sounds like they are leaving. So if the tankers are leaving, that means that Massey's might be staying closed for a little bit, which means they are probably not done.
So and it looks like the venting right at the base of the ship there has picked up just a little bit. Call me crazy.
It's a perspective. That vent is so that large tank right there.
Yep.
Get my aerial shot again here real quick. That large tank is a part of the LN2 setup. Right there, you see the a bunch of ribs on that tank on. That's basically the LN. That's part of the LN2 side of the tank farm, and there's a couple of vents that are kind of near there, which help vent off outgassing and stuff like that for the LN2 side and whatnot. That's kind of what's going at the moment. So when you see there's vents that kind of happen a little bit more to the left, but they're not actually. Those are more like the LOX ones. Not the actual CH4 ones, and then the kind of CH4 ones are a little bit more over to the left. It's kind of hard to point them out here because it's perspective, but that's actually pretty far away from the ship is where that vent is coming from.
And LN2, that's the liquid nitrogen, right?
Yeah, that vent right there should be the LN2, liquid nitrogen. Yeah.
Awesome. Just in the last few moments here, We've got another gifted red team membership from Mark Diamonds. Thank you very much for gifting that. Someone else getting access to the membership area for a month, totally free. And it's gifted memberships are pretty cool. I'm a big fan of the gifted memberships because more people get to become members, and it also helps us out. So the audience is rewarded and the channel's rewarded. I'm struggling to think of anything better here. I really, really like the gifted memberships feature that YouTube introduced. So thanks, YouTube. That's one thing you do very well. Speaking of questions, Severin back in the question queue again, asking, will there eventually be a Starbase Pad C, or will 2 launch/catch sites be enough? Also, where will the next Starship facility be after Florida and Starbase? Vandy, question mark? Max, I'll throw this one to you first. Do you think we'll ever see a 3rd pad/catch area at Starbase? And then where do you think SpaceX will set their eyes after Florida and Starbase have been online?
As far as we're aware, a 3rd pad in Starbase is not in the works, but I wouldn't rule it out entirely. But keep in mind, everything that's happening in Starbase right now is going to eventually evolve and come over to Florida, and then they will be flying a bunch out of Florida, especially once Starship becomes operational commercially. So they already have LC-39A actually right in front of us over at the Kennedy Space Center. We know they want Slick 37. They also wanted LC-49, although that is looking less and less likely by the day because the environmental review on that is not going the best. They are going to they want to occupy as much land here as possible in Florida to pretty much be able to launch and catch Starship as much as they possibly can. So they recently acquired Slick 6 out at Vandenberg, which is a gorgeous pad and formerly was owned by ULA and flew Delta IV Heavy, and just the Delta IV family in general. And we originally thought, we still kind of think that will be made to support certain Falcon Heavy missions out of Vandy, but that it's worth noting that could also be built and maintained to be supporting Starship operations there in the future. Vandy seems like the logical next step once they get beyond Florida, but there is a lot more land available here in Florida to build any certain launch or catch complexes, and they want as much as possible. And you can do almost everything you can in Vandy, bar from going retrograde against Earth's orbit, i.e. launching westward. So Vandy sounds right, but they're going to do a lot in Florida.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely incredible to see. Like, I'm personally, whether you'll actually be able to achieve this photograph because of how often they want to be launching, I don't know. But personally, I want to see like Missile Row, but Starships.
Oh, dude, please! Like that is one of the dreams.
Yeah, but literally because SpaceX will be, they'll have 39A. They want to take over 37, I believe. So maybe they could have a couple pads at 37. Maybe there's going to be a Slick 50 in the future at some time. Who knows? And then let's just assume that the environmental things suddenly become good. Then there's 6 launch pads at Launch Complex 49, and they have a Starship stacked on all of them. Just saying.
Plus,
helicopter
and that's
long telephoto lens. Just saying.
You won't even need that big of a lens too, because that is right next to Playa Linda Beach, which is a publicly accessible area. So,
well,
you were saying, go ahead, Ryan. Sorry,
I was about to say as long if they start building a bunch of pads there, it might not become as publicly accessible. But I was gonna say, you add to Starship, and you can't forget about every other rocket that's going to be there. There's going to be a lot of other rockets that are going to be at the Cape too, like 4 or 5 other vehicles?
The photo that I have in mind specifically is just going going from north to south at LC-39B, SLS, 39A, some sort of Falcon, whether it be Falcon 9 or Falcon Heavy, and Starship, as unlikely as that might be. Then Vulcan on 41, and then hopefully at that point we'll have a Starship over on LC-37. and then can't forget about Slick 40, Falcon 9 and Slick 40. And then going down, we will have hopefully Terran R on 14. No, I'm sorry, 16. And then we have Stoke at 14, and then Blue Origin at 36. Imagine a photograph of all of them vertical at once, as unlikely as that is for at least the next, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years. That is just that is the modern day missile row, and that is the dream photograph that I've been thinking about for years now.
The 45th Space Wing has got their work cut out for them.
They certainly do.
I wonder how quickly they'll be able to pick up the count, help facilitate the countdowns of all these, and like how quickly in succession they can, launch them all. Like, could every single pad launch in a single day? No, I mean orbits, the orbits and everything out of to throw that out the window for a second. But
I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that being a success, so it's difficult to see that at least right now. But I guess hypothetically, it could be possible, but we'll have to wait at least 5 years and see, right?
I think it's kind of. It's going to be really cool to see, but we need this version of Starship to work before we can achieve any of these, wonderful.
Getting too far ahead of
aspirational
ourselves now, are we?
I know, right? I just want to rein it back in just a little bit.
Hey, to rein it back in, Ryan, I will say this. There does seem to be reports here, and I'll just kind of say this, talking with some other people and around and whatnot. It sounds like the road is still closed, but workers have been sent into Massey's. So looks like they're going to try to fix something, and we might be going for a recycle sometime tonight. So
they're sending in the red team, is what you're saying?
Something like that. Yeah.
So fingers crossed things still continue. So we'll stay live with you because as those reports suggest, it looks as if this could, fingers crossed, be a relatively quick fix. There's no definitive window. SpaceX can pretty much static fire whenever they like. So we'll be staying live, keeping an eye on Ship 35. And fingers crossed they maybe just need to swap out a valve or two, not, replace an entire long bit of plumbing. I don't know. I don't do GSE. I'm not a GSE engineer. I'm just going to say that now. Fingers crossed it's a small fix rather than a big fix, and they can get static firing later on. But to do with those rapid launches from all of those pads on the range, if SpaceX wants to do point-to-point, they're going to be able to need to launch multiple times per day from one pad. So surely the range would need to be able to support that. Just throwing that one out there. Okay, moving on. It seems as if nobody likes point to point. Apparently, well, there you go. That's a shame. Crispy in Tuckerton.
Well, he's not here, so it's like none of us can really touch that without a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, Henry in space saying ATC for the Cape. But it's space traffic control. That's what we need. Space traffic control. But probably communicating with the flight computers rather than communicating with. Over voice, let's put it that way. Let's have a look through here. TerraSpace asking, so we've talked about going into the future now. Let's speak about going back into the past, back when we saw initial booster tests. We saw those hop tests with the ship. TerraSpace wondering why we didn't see SpaceX do any booster-only tests, any booster-only flights. Why did we not see a booster with a, kind of dodgy nose cone strapped on top, fly up to 12.5 kilometers for a catch test? Max, why do you think SpaceX never did anything along those lines?
I don't think SpaceX deemed that sort of testing really necessary. I mean, obviously the results speak for themselves. They never did that. So I think, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, they had a plan to, I think, hop Booster 3 or Booster 4 of sorts way back in the day to do some initial descent testing. But I guess SpaceX just did not deem it necessary. And certainly the booster architecture and engine design have changed significantly since then. And I think with the rapid evolvement that they've had, specifically with the Super Heavy program, I think it was more worth it to just fly the booster as a whole and get data rather than going well out of their way to support, I guess, smaller hop flights. It's a lot easier to justify that with ship because it is designed to do that on a regular basis. But Super Heavy, I don't know. It seems excessive in my opinion. I want to hear Ryan's thoughts though.
They had planned like some of the really booster ones, like whether it was BN3 or B3. There had been talk. I think Elon had mentioned they wanted to do a hop test with it, or maybe even booster 4. But I think SpaceX realized there wasn't a lot of point in that, because at that point they had firmly gotten towards catching, so they didn't have a landing leg design to put on the booster to even do such a thing. Then that would have taken time to design, or at least come up with something to put on. And also at the time, they thought they were closer to a flight than they actually were. A lot closer. They were a lot farther away. I mean, I remember they static fired Booster 3. Its single static fire happened on July 19th, 2021. They didn't static fire another booster until August 9th of 2022, and that was Booster 7. So there was definitely that lag between it, but there was a massive design change between Booster 3 and Booster 7 with, of course, 33 engines. There's the addition of, the chines and all that other stuff. So there was a lot of design changes along that. And the only thing the hop would have helped later on would have been to figure out the leak issues and the shielding issues with Booster 7 that they found during Flight 1. So, I mean, they just found it out during Flight 1, they fixed it, and Booster 9 was fine. I don't even really think if hop would have been necessary to anyways. The one thing I still wish they did was the hypersonic test flight of SN16, but that's just me.
Oh, yeah. But also,
Rocket Lab have haste. Just saying.
It's not.
I'm sure there's defense money in there.
It's not the same, Ryan. Come on. Well, I was
slightly smaller.
So cool if they did that.
I was going to say, like you say, there was a lot of design changes between BN3, BN4, and Booster 7, but there was also a significant amount of changes between Booster 7 and Booster 9 on Flight 2, and because Super Heavy is just the Block 1 or V1, whatever you want to call it, has evolved a ton, and mostly internally between its structuring and just plumbing everything. Like there's nothing similar to Booster 15 or Booster 14 compared to Booster 7. They're night and day different designs.
So when they originally designed the booster, so Booster 3, Booster 4, they had no stringers, none, in the LOX tank. Not in LOX tank, none in the methane tank. They like basically nothing. In Booster 5 and up, they put 24 internal stringers in there. Basically is what they did. And then from Booster 11 on up, they had around 74 internal stringers sitting around it. So over time, they have significantly increased the structural integrity of the booster, along with changing the E-dome, changing avionics. Of course, I mean, they had it a hot stage ring to the top of the thing between 7 and 9. There was a lot of changes between all the boosters. I really don't think a hop would have done much for them. I think full stack flights was the way to go, as much as they probably should have waited to put the plate in, because they knew they needed the plate, but they crossed their fingers and hoped that it wouldn't have been as bad as it was. But on the bright side, it helped them dig the hole that they needed to dig when they flew Flight 1. So,
the
bright side of things.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. We've got a couple questions here. First of all, El Hulto, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. They're asking, do we think there is a risk of a RUD during in-space burn or the landing flip Relight. I'm going to just, preface this by saying there is always a chance of a RUD, as the last two flights have shown us. But I'll go around the room here. Max, let's start with you. What do you think? Let's just say for Ship 35, let's assume it gets through Seco, let's assume it gets to space. What do you think are the risks of the Raptor issues coming back up, let's say, during the in-space burn or the landing burn?
I think if they get to Seco, they'll be in good shape for the rest of the flight. I think from what we've seen visually, we can. I don't want to say it's safe to say, but I think just visually we can trace the issues that have plagued Ship 33 and Ship 34 down to the RVACs. And of course, after Seco, they only use the sea level Raptors, which have proven to be very reliable to this point, especially on ship. And that is of course what are going to be used for the in-flight burn and the flip burn, or the flip and landing burn, I should say. So assuming that they can get to Seco, my God, I think they'll be fine.
Ryan, do you have any thoughts on this topic?
As you said, there's always a risk of a RUD. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter what vehicle it is. There's always that risk. Things mechanical like to break. So, I'm really curious how an in-space burn or landing flip relight with an empty LOX tank works with this, especially with the issues they've had. If it RUDs on the landing flip, whatever, they can fix that. I don't think that's much of an issue. They get the heat shield data they want. That's a big win, and that won't really. As far as I understand, that's not going to cause a mishap if they RUD on the land. If they RUD at the landing bird, because all of the stuff will fall in the in the hazard area, and there shouldn't be any issue with that one. A RUD in the in-space burn, that wouldn't be great, because that was to be a mishap investigation again. Plus, they wouldn't get the heat shield data, but there's always that possibility, and I think it's a little bit higher on this because of the issues they've had with empty LOX tanks and running engines with the past two flights. So I think that's a little bit higher this time around. But yeah.
Yeah. And we've got a couple questions here from Luke. I'll do a very quick, rapid question asking here. First of all, somewhat near-term future. Max, how many flights do you think it'll be until SpaceX attempts to catch the ship?
Assuming Flight 9 goes well, I can see it on Flight 10, to be honest with you.
And Ryan, when do you think SpaceX will send Starship to Mars? Do you think 2026 Elon's timeline is going to go, or do you think it'll be a little bit longer?
I don't think it'll go in 2026. I think it'll be 28, 29, whenever that next window is.
Max?
I would like to say 2026. But tough to say right now unless they can get their game on point and fly as often as they need to get there. So I would like to see 2026.
Okay. Well, speaking of sending starships to Mars, that's one destination Ship 35 will definitely not be ending up. If all goes well, it'll be ending up in the Indian Ocean, maybe, if that's the trajectory SpaceX chooses. We'll just have to wait and see. Either way, for now, Ship 35 isn't going anywhere. It's, as we've seen for the last hour or so, not really doing much at the Massey's outposts. But that's not the end of the day for SpaceX at all, because in exactly T-minus 1 hour and 30 minutes to the second now, there should be the launch of the next Starlink mission out of the Cape, which we'll be going live for in just under 30 minutes time. So if you want more live streams to watch, make sure to tune in for that. Tune into that, put my teeth back in half an hour's time. I believe there may be some familiar voices if you've been listening to this Starship stream coming back for a reprise in that Starlink stream. In the meantime, though, if you want something else to watch, then we released a video yesterday about, was it yesterday or the day before? I honestly can't remember. Anyways, this is a video not only about Butch and Sunny, but as we saw in the media, there was a lot of words saying they were stranded and all of things like that. But Butch and Sunny are nowhere near the first astronauts to have their missions extended. So if you want to learn about the situation with Frank Rubio, with Mark Vanderhei, with, say, maybe even a Russian movie star and a Russian movie production delaying a NASA astronaut's return to the International Space Station? What if you want to learn about the cosmonaut who is in space when the Soviet Union collapsed and literally could not return home to his home country because it did not exist anymore? If you want to learn about things like that, the Stranded Astronauts video is for you. It's about 20 minutes long, so you've got plenty of time to watch that between now and the beginning of our Starlink stream. Of course, to stay up to date with all of the rapidly changing events in Starbase, follow us on the socials. We're NASASpaceflight.com. You know how to find us. And of course, I'll also note, if Ship 35 suddenly springs back to life later today, as Ryan was saying, the road is still closed. They might just be fixing some bits and they will then come back to static fire later in the day. We will continue our Ship 35 coverage following the Starlink launch in just over an hour's time. And with that, Max, thank you very much for joining us today.
Absolutely. And don't go far. I'll be seeing you guys again in just under a half hour for Starlink 6-75.
Ryan as well, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure always. Always love talking about Starship. Hopefully it gets its static fire done tonight and we can move forward with Flight 9.
Jay in the background pushing the buttons. Thank you very much for the production support today, Jay. And of course, the Starbase Live operators, as usual, the team do an incredible job around the clock, nearly 24/7 coverage operating Starbase Live. So whenever you tune into SBL, if you see the 4 box, you see 4 cameras. Someone's picked those cameras. Someone's made that decision. So thank you very much to the Starbase Live operators behind the scenes, moving the cameras and running all of that stuff as well. For now, I've been Ryan Caton for NSF. Thank you very much for watching. And until the Starlink, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
And here we go.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside SPD off. Say again, SPD off. Off. It's orange! 145!
Oh my god!
Decollage.
Put that in the big bag, 343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.